We're back with Dr. Deborah Birx, White House coronavirus task force coordinator during the Trump administration, who has a new book, Silent Invasion. Dr. Birx, your book details the Trump White House's COVID response during the earliest stages of the pandemic and throughout 2020. You're quite critical of President Trump and others in the administration. You write, for instance, quote, "Some roaming the halls of the West Wing believe that the less we did, the less we would be accountable for whatever was about to happen," unquote. Take us inside those halls. You say early on the president was receptive to your recommendations, but that all seemed to change in early April. Why?
So we had done that large analysis and that projection to show in that first surge between 100,000 and 240,000 Americans, even if we were very good and perfect and we really mitigated aggressively like we were doing across the country, we would lose that many Americans in that first surge. There was a group in the White House that took the same data I was using, used a different case fatality rate. Now, you have to know data, and our data was so delayed in the United States for reporting that you couldn't use our data. But they used our data. I used European data because the colleagues in Europe have been so good about sending me their data. I'm just so grateful to them. And so my projections were based on an accurate case fatality. The CEA group, our Council of Economic Advisors, did a separate analysis and came up with an answer of 26,000. And so I'm saying 100,000 and more. They're saying 26,000. That number resonated with many because it was similar to a normal flu season. And in that moment, I think the president felt that I had betrayed him and made up the numbers and that we would never get to the 100,000 that he had resulted in the 30 days to slow the spread.
One of the most memorable moments during your time in the White House was, of course, when President Trump suggested that ingesting chemical disinfectants to treat COVID, and of course, your reaction to that. Let's take a little stroll back on memory lane here.
And then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that? By injection inside or almost a cleaning.
So in the book, you say that President Trump's comments made you furious. It blew up the credibility of the task force. I have to say, when I asked you about the president's comments a few days later, at a time when poison control centers were warning people not to ingest disinfectants, this was your response.
Well, I think it bothers me that this is still in the news cycle. I worry that we don't get the information to the American people that they need when we continue to bring up something that was from Thursday night.
So it bothered you, it was still in the news cycle. Do you regret not taking that opportunity to provide the correct information to the American people about why they should not ingest bleach instead of chastising the news media?
So I did immediately, obviously, go to the presidential advisors and others in the White House to make it clear that those were not therapies. And the very next day, the president said they weren't therapies. He was joking. CDC put up and FDA put up that these were not treatments under any circumstances. I was so worried about Boston and Detroit and Chicago. I wanted to use my very few minutes talking about how to prevent this viral spread and how to save American lives. And I was just so focused, Jake, on the data and trying to get the right information out there when there was so much swirl of information. I was just focused on those elements, and that's why I said those things. And I'm not as polished. You know, I learned a lot in the White House. I'm just not as polished as many others were. I learned quickly, and I tried to not make the same mistake twice. But, I mean, you point out a very important piece, and I was just so focused on what we needed to convey that day.
Yeah, you note that President Trump came out and said that he'd been joking, but you write, the media and the public saw through this. I mean,
yes.
He wasn't joking. We all reported it. And we all noted he wasn't joking. You say after the disinfectant debacle, things fundamentally changed for the task force and that you were increasingly sidelined as the months went on. You write, quote, though the president didn't utter the catchphrase, "You're fired," I very much had the sense that I had been. You say you considered quitting at one point. Why did you decide to stay?
Well, for one thing, there was no one else in the White House Tony and Bob and Steve Hahn were in their respective agencies and working as hard as they possibly could. And that's also what I wanted to show in the book, how hard people were working to really make a difference. Someone had to be there to constantly get the information out, the correct data, what needed to be done. And that was the thing that was the kind of schizophrenic nature of the White House. At one point, the president is saying this, and I'm funding, and he's writing defense production to do this. And so as long as we were able to move the ball closer and closer to the goalposts, I felt it was valuable for me to stay.
You're critical of the CDC in the book. You write, quote, "In many ways, anti-Trump sentiment has prevented people from seeing the full spectrum of the breakdown at the CDC in the pandemic's early months, and that continues today," unquote. What kinds of failures are you talking about from the CDC?
I think the number one piece is access to real-time data. They had years to prepare for a pandemic. They had decided that their preparation was going to be looking for symptoms rather than definitive laboratory diagnosis. You know, I come out of a laboratory and clinical background, and it's really important to me to really know what the patient has, not what I think he could have based on symptoms. And we had spent 2 decades making sure that everybody in Africa that had the fever was diagnosed with either HIV, TB, or malaria. It didn't matter where you lived, how far down the road. And here in the United States, we're deciding if people have flu or not by symptoms. And so it was how the pandemic preparedness moved forward in the United States that were those original sins. And I still don't think they're getting data fast enough and reporting it out to the American people fast enough.